What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the RPS NASCAR live show. We are talking Go Bolwing at the Glen NASCAR race today. I'm back. I'm your host, JSU, and with me today, starting off, we got our guy, Coop. Coop leading the playbook. What's going on, Coop?
Hey, doing very well. How about yourself, man? Have you recovered from last night?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm recovered. I'm ready to go. I got my coffee. I got like my 2 hours of sleep. So, I'm here and I'm ready to host, man. I don't know if I can give you much else, but I'm gonna host this show. So we're gonna get it done.
You got 6 digits there too, man. Right? Give yourself some kudos, man.
Yeah. Got the 6-digit shipper last night. It felt good. Baseball. Nice sweat all throughout the night. It was definitely an exhausting sweat too, because I was in the lead for a really long time, from maybe an hour into the slate, maybe a little longer than that, maybe like an hour and a half, and then I was kind of holding the lead down pretty much. It held. So I mean, I ran pure, that's for sure. But talking about running pure, AP, what's up, brother?
What's going on, man? Congratulations. That was a nice win last night. I was I wasn't going to play. I was going to take the night off. But, the coach, Big T, put me in to do content, to do the show. And if I'm doing content, if I'm doing the show, I got to play. And, I had a nice little win. It was nothing like JSU's, but, it was nice to finally, take down a MLB tournament. Mind you, 50 times less than JSU's, but still,
and
feels
listen,
good.
I'm on the baseball show too after this, where I can give my actual takes on what happened. But I do just quickly, I got to shout out because I literally did no research on my own. I watched the show at 5:00. I watched the show at 5:00, like on my phone. You know what I mean? On my phone, literally. And AP and Big T were talking about Houston, and they love Houston. So I got to shout you guys out for that, because that's where I got the Houston stack from. Was definitely from you guys. And then, Tony talked about the bottom of the Yankees lineup specifically, and that's where I got that from. So I literally got to give you guys like pretty much all the credit, because I got my ideas based off of the show and the core plays and the playbook. And that was my tweet. If anyone saw my tweet, it wasn't boasting about me doing no research. It was me trying to shout out the fact that I literally just used the playbook. I listened to the show and I looked at the core plays. That was it. That was literally it. I did not look at baseball until the show started at 5:00. So that's all it was.
I think that's the great thing, man, because we keep talking about, everybody's about analytics and numbers and all this and all that, man. That's not what we're about, man. We're just about, information and gut feelings and what we feel is going to happen. And
and I just want to show that, like, the playbook and the content we give out, it can work. It can work for other people too. Like, it was good content, and that was the whole point of the tweet. Was I just wanted to shout out the content. But yeah, let's move on. Let's talk about the race, guys. Coop, why don't you give us a quick breakdown of this race? The course, track, whatever. You want to give us any little nuggets on the track?
Oh, this is a replacement race. It's supposed to be happening in Watkins Glen, but they're not allowing us to race up there. So they moved it to Daytona, and this is the first Cup Series race that they're actually going to have on this track. And, part of it is a road course, with the majority of it being on the super speedway. And if you watched yesterday's Xfinity race, you're in for quite a bit of excitement, because, when they get to the road course portion of it, they're basically just bumper cars bumping off of each other and slipping and sliding all around. And the thing is, if you get off track and you get into the grass, it can destroy your car and then take quite a bit of time for you to get back onto the racetrack. So, it's going to be interesting and see how things pan out. And there's really no inside-outside lane preferential, because there's advantages to being in both, depending upon where you're at on the track. So it's going to be interesting. It's a short race, only 65 laps through 3.6 miles is what it takes to get around one lap. And the stages are 15, 15, and 35, I believe, is the last one. So we'll in for a lot of excitement, a lot of unexpected. And, there is a Charlotte Roval race that they've had here or before in Charlotte, which is similar, being on a road course and then on the actual Speedway Oval part of the Charlotte Speedway. So it is new. There's not a lot of data out there. But I think the biggest thing is stick with the road course drivers.
All right. So let's start off, Coop, at the top, and we're going to work our way in. And I just kind of want you to give your thoughts on these guys. First the top three. So let's talk about Harvick, Hamlin, Truex Jr. What are we thinking here? Are we starting with the lead guy, or is there someone else in this top three that you have your eye on?
Well, I think, the first thing you got to look at is the Dominator points that are available. There's very few Dominator points available, 65 laps. So that means, I think, 16.25 points for laps led. And then you get a point, half a point for having the fastest lap on each lap. But those only occur under green flags. So, for a round number, we'll go to say there's 50 green flag laps. It's 25 points right there. So there's not a lot. So it's really coming down to finishing position, who can collect the Dominator points, and point differential from gaining position. So starting up front, isn't great from a fantasy perspective. From a race perspective, it's very good because this track is all about, track position, and you want to be up front. And, if you look at the Roval race, the finishing top 10, 8 of the cars started in the top 10. And that has happened for both of those Charlotte races. And then yesterday, I think 6 out of the top 11 started in the top 11. So you want to stay up there, but then you got to think from a fantasy point, if you start first or second or third and you finish 7th, 8th, or 9th, you're losing those points. So that's not great. So you want to kind of play this, similar to a Daytona or a Talladega, where you want the winner up front, obviously, who's going to gain. And then you want to try to get as much place differential as what you can. So with that being said, Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin on the front row. And they're both very good road course drivers, but they also carry a lot of downside. And they're probably going to be fairly popular, especially because of their price. So for me, it's just strategical, and I'll have neither one of them. I want to try to gain the edge of getting, ownership away from them. And I think the fade is good because, if let's say a Harvick, he goes out, he leads 1 or 2 laps and then falls and he finishes 5th or 6th, and that's where he finishes, he's not going to pay off for you. So you want to find that 1 or 2 drivers who are in the top 10 that get that positive. And for me, it's not going to be Harvick or Hamlin.
All right. So this makes, now to me, when you say this, it makes me say, kind of like you said, I don't want any of these 2, but really out of the top, 5 or 6, you want to try and pick the winner if you're playing one of these guys, but you're not going to have multiple of these guys in your lineup. Is that what you're saying, Coop? I just wanted to be clear.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm saying.
All right. I like it. So
that's the thing.
Give me the guy who in this top 5 is your guy who you would pick out of the top 5 to win. Like if you had to pick one of these guys, who would it be?
To win? Kyle Busch.
You had to. Kyle Busch. Okay.
And, so, I think that's purely, again, strategical because the guy struggled this year. But we're back on the 750 horsepower package, which he enjoys. I think him and Truex, who I would put right behind Busch, are better road course drivers than Hamlin and Harvick. And Toyota seems to do better on these 750 packages and also the road courses. So that's why I would put those 2 up there. But, again, going back to what you were saying, I wouldn't necessarily play a Harvick and a Busch together because if you are doing that, you are basically expecting them to split those few dominator points that are out there. If one of them gets more than the other, you're going to have drivers who gain more point differential than the other one. So you really, you could have some lineups where both of them are, because sure, it could happen, but I'm going to bank on it that it doesn't happen. And one of them gets significantly more dominator points than the other.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So it's more likely that one gets more than the other. So it's not worth having two of these guys in your lineup. And I'm going to bring it to AP. All right. So for GPP's AP, Coop talked about he thinks that Kyle Busch and Truex, if he had to pick in this top 5 with, Harvick, Hamlin, Truex, Busch, Logano, he would like those two the most. What are you thinking from GPPs? You talked about not having two of these guys in your lineup. Are you going to fade this whole range, or do you like just taking one of these drivers and then kind of not pairing two?
Yeah, like with NASCAR, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm the expert. I lean on Coop for that. And I've been picking his brain for years now, and he's never steered me in the wrong direction. And with NASCAR, what I've found and what Coop's really taught me, there's always a formula for success here. There's always a roadmap that we got to follow to get to that top spot. And I think he laid it out perfectly. Like, we want one of these guys up top. Like, if you start messing with your builds, you're going to find that it's very difficult to get multiple of these guys that are starting in the top 5 into your lineup. So it's not going to be optimal. And so you gotta pick and choose. I got two guys that I like. I agree with Coop. I like Truex and I like Busch, and I think I'm fading the other guys. And I just want to get all overweight on these guys. And I think, so Busch is 9,800 on DraftKings, and let's see, Truex is 10-1. I like a guy between the 6th and 10th starting spot too, that I'm going to try to pair one of those guys with him in my build. So what I'm doing is I'm setting a rule to where I'm only allowing one guy in the top 5 in my lineup, because I'll be pairing it with other guys basically down the road. But then I'm fading the other guys, and it's just no rhyme or reason to it. I just got to get different. I can't try to play all these guys. It's just not going to work out. So those are the two guys I like. And honestly, I'll probably be a little bit higher in Kyle Busch. I like that, over the last 2 races, he has some solid finishes. Maybe he's turned the corner. Coop, I was going to ask you, what do you think? You think Kyle Busch, you think he's turned the corner? Do you think the last 2 finishes have shown something good with him, or what's going on?
The reason I like him, is I mentioned he prefers the 750 horsepower. He's a very good road course driver, and his struggle this year has been the setup. And I think he's more on an even page with everybody this week when it comes to setup, because it's the first road course race we've had this year. So, there's no data, where the 1.5-mile, 2-mile tracks or whatever, short tracks, they can pull off of the setup from prior races this year. So they're all on an even page. And who's to say Kyle Busch and his team doesn't hit that right setup? I think he's going to be fairly low owned, because, we haven't got to the most expensive driver up there, which people are going to want. And there's another driver above him. But, that price tag on Hamlin and price tag on Harvick is going to pull people in, even though optimally it's not going to be, great. I don't think you're going to see like a 30-40%, Kevin Harvick type of ownership and Denny Hamlin. But, who knows? You could surprise, and that's what it ends up being. But I'm thinking it's more around 20%. So, and that's the part with, NASCAR that makes it so tough. You got to take a stand. And that's where my stand is going to be, is to drive Truex and Kyle Busch to victory.
Yeah. All right. I like it. Let's move on to the other guys in the top 10. Almirola, Elliott, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch's brother, De Benedetto, and then Gralla, who's at 6K on DraftKings. Coop, let's start with you. In this kind of bottom half of the top 10, you talked about, really and truly, you wanted to take a few guys here, but you didn't want to overload your lineups with a bunch of guys from the top 10. So who are the guys you really like out of these 5?
Well, AP hit it right. I want to take one of these drivers and pair him with Busch or Truex. And that's not going to be in every lineup, but when I go this route, that's what I want to do. You can eliminate Gralla right away, because he's got to go to the rear. And you don't want to be starting in the rear and, not having great experience, just eliminate him, period. And then while we're at it, another thing you need to pay attention to today is the inspection process. And if a car fails, they're going to go to the rear. And, if Kyle Busch goes to the rear, I'm going to be off of Kyle Busch. If Martin Truex goes to the rear, I'll be off of them, because the limited amount of laps, they're not going to be able to get back up there and to be able to pay off. So make sure you pay attention to the inspection process and who fails and who doesn't. The other driver I have no interest in here is Amarola. He's not a very good road course driver whatsoever. So I will, be staying away from him. And then DiBenedetto, he's not as bad as Amarillo, but he's not very good either. So he's another driver I'll be staying away from. The big driver in here is Chase Elliott. He's going to be popular. His price tag will help, the ownership be moderate, especially with, Blaney being so much more and trying to figure that piece out. But he's been very, very good on road courses over his short career. And, you got to have some Chase Elliott. And I like, starting with Truex or Busch with Elliott. And then the sleeper in here is Kurt Busch. I think he's going to come in fairly low owned, and you're going to have some Kurt Busch because he's strong on road courses. And he's in that position of 8th where he starts, and he likes to finish anywhere from 6th to 12th. I'm not looking at him to get up there and lead laps or anything. It's just purely a low ownership play, hoping that he finishes 2nd or 3rd, 4th possibly. But you got to have some Kurt Busch.
Okay, so you do think that Kurt Busch has the ability, though, to get up there and finish in the top 3. You just, don't think it's like super likely, but you think he has a shot, right?
Oh, yeah, he definitely has a shot. I mean, he could be in 3rd place after turn 1, or turn 2, because, these cars, like I said, were all over the place yesterday. And, if you can hold your line, you can get up there very quickly. So, he definitely could lead some laps too. He has a road course win. Over his career. So just don't discount him.
All right. Well, I like it. I might make a Busch Brothers lineup right now. But AP, what are you thinking about this range? Coop says we're throwing out pretty much Almirola, DiBenedetto, and Gralla. So I assume you're taking him at his word. And what are you doing with the other 2, Chase Elliott and Kurt Busch? Coop kind of likes them both. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I always take Coop at his word, and but I always get different. Like I don't just blindly follow his advice. I look into it and I try to make some game theory decisions to make some pivots. Now I love the Kurt Busch. I wasn't on him. The guy I wanted to lock in was Chase Elliott. I love the Vegas odds on him to win at 4-1, and what I was looking at is if you pair him with the 2 other guys that we talked about, it's doable with some of the value that we have in play today. I love the idea of mixing Kurt Busch in. Now, let me ask Coop one thing that I'm looking at right now. Would you say it's viable to have a build where you go Kurt Busch and Chase Elliott, or do you think you do? Okay. Do you think that's getting a little too different? Or, we don't have a lot of laps to work with, and, it's hard for these drivers to pass each other. So that was my one concern. But I think that's a route that I'm looking at now that I think is kind of interesting.
Yep, it'll be
That's
different.
A good question,
and it'll be different. And, I'll get to it later, but if you build lineups today that you feel comfortable with, you might cash, but you're not going to win.
Well, that's a good question, though, because you do talk about, Coop, not having too many drivers paired right next to each other, right? So you do talk about it. So from a tournament strategy, if a lot of people are doing it, that would be somewhat contrarian, correct? In the way AP's thinking? So it's not a bad thought.
But again, point differential, placement differential is the biggest thing this week. So you got to kind of throw that out the door. I have no issues with that whatsoever. And, if you start a lineup with the 7th and 8th driver and, you're not starting with the top 6, it's going to be different. And I think the other piece too is, like I said, after the first or 2 laps, these guys could be in 3rd or 4th. It just all depends because, like I said, these cars were all over the place yesterday. And if you get that right line, you hold your line, you can get up there really quickly. it's easy to pass on the restarts because if you're in the right place, you can make it. But once, it kind of lays out for 3 or 4 laps, that's when it gets tougher to pass.
Yeah. All right, cool. So let's move on to the next range. We got Jimmy Johnson, 11th, from Boyer, 12th, Willie Byron, 13th, Ryan Newman, 14th, and Bell, 15th. Pretty solid range here. Coop, we'll bring it to you first. What are we looking at in this range?
We'll start with Boyer. He's obviously the donkey of this class, and he's the best road course driver in this group. And he's probably going to be the most popular within this group also. So, he's somebody who you compare with, Truex, Busch, Elliott. You want to get contrarian, like AP was saying, start Kurt Busch with Boyer. That'll be different too. But definitely want to have some Boyer. He's very successful on these road courses, and he needs a win to get up there, get more playoffs, secure his playoff position, and he's looking to maintain his ride next year. And he knows this is one of his best shots. So definitely Clint Boyer. Jimmy Johnson, I think, is a great play, similar to Kurt Busch. Jimmy Johnson, he struggles a lot when it comes to these races that, have a tendency to create accidents because he finds a way to get there or he creates them himself. So I think he'll be a little higher owned than Kurt Busch, but I think he's not going to be too high owned because of that starting position. So I like him as a GPP play. I don't know if I was playing some lineups like 150, I'd definitely start with Kurt Busch and Jimmy Johnson in one of them. Maybe put him with a Kyle Busch. That would be different, and go from there. Then, we get to the part where, I struggle, and that's, with the Ryan Newman and Christopher Bell piece. Ryan Newman's solid. He's going to get you a top 20 on this track more than likely, but is it going to be enough? Is that top 20 going to be, a 12th, 13th, or 14th place position and pay off, or is it going to be a 16th, 17th, and 18th? So I'd have a little bit of Ryan Newman, but not a lot. And then Christopher Bell, I put in the playbook, these guys, the rookies, Bell, Custer, and Reddick, they were good last year on the Xfinity road courses, but they weren't nearly as dominant as what they were on, let's say, the ovals. So I'm kind of reluctant to play some Christopher Bell. But again, like I was telling AP before the show, this is the range where you've got to play some of these drivers. You've got to get uncomfortable with your lineups today, because if you go with the straight pure plays, it's not going to pay off. Some of these guys will pay off, but you got to find the Christopher Bell or the Ryan Newman, that end up getting that 7th or 8th that are going to be lower owned in order to take down that GPP. So, I'll have a little bit of them, but depending upon how many lineups you make, that's where you got to make, your decision on who you're going to play or not, and I would go Newman over Bell if I'm not playing a lot.
All right, so AP, bring it to you. Boyer's going to be popular, Coop thinks, and he likes Newman over Bell, but he thinks they're both kind of sneaky. What are you thinking in this range for GPP?
Yeah, being the NASCAR donkey that I am, I look at Ryan Newman and I look at the course, and we just talked about it. Finishing position is going to be very important here, more so than dominator points and all of that. Ryan Newman, 6,300, I believe, on DraftKings, and he's not going to be high owned at all. The thing about it though is like if he can absolutely kill your lineups too if he falls a long ways. But if you I guess where my mind goes is, can this guy hold his position or improve on his position a little bit? And if he can, you're able to get a lot of these other studs in your lineup since he's only 6,300. So that's like why I think he's an interesting play. It's just, it's one of those things where if he drops off and he falls back quickly, I think you're going to be. I haven't looked at the chart and I don't have the chart. So Coop, when I toss it back to you, talk about what he needs to finish to pay off at his price point. But this is always going to be the range I kind of struggle with too. But since we don't have a lot of laps to work with, I think Coop is right. where we got to get a little bit uncomfortable. And so I'm going to have like Newman, so I'm looking at ownership projections. He's right at 8%. And like, I don't know, I feel like, and I could be way off, but he just allows you to fit whoever you want into your builds, instead of deep diving and going way down to the value section. So I think he's interesting, and he could work on a track like this since we don't have a lot of laps to work with. But that's kind of my main question to Coop. So, like, let's say if this race was, twice as long as it is, like, would that make a Ryan Newman play far more riskier than what he is, since it's dealing with 60-some laps?
Oh, yeah, it'd make it much, much riskier. So, Newman basically needs to finish where he starts to pay off. Because, I put in the playbook, Draftkings has done a very good job with pricing this week. And, we always want to try to hit 5 times value. And for what these drivers need to accomplish to achieve that is very challenging and very difficult. And he's one of the drivers, if he holds his position, he's basically going to pay off. So he's worth a couple of chances. The other driver I forgot to speak about, is probably the best GPP play on the book, and that's William Byron. The guy's 8.6K. Nobody's going to pay 8.6K for William Byron starting 13th. He has very few top 10s here recently, but if you look at it, he's finished basically 10th to 12th the majority of his recent races. So he's been strong. He's been competitive. He's had a lot of good cars this year. He's had a lot of issues. He doesn't have a lot of experience on road tracks, but I think, if he can sneak up in there and he can get that 8th place finish, 7th place finish, I think 6 is what he actually needs to pay off. But I think a 7th or 8th will do just as well for you. He could help you take down a GPP, because I don't see him being more than 8% owned. And that's strictly because of its price. So, you don't have to play a lot of them, but, playing like a Kurt Busch with a William Byron would be, super contrarian. And I think just playing William Byron in general is going to be contrarian. So it really doesn't matter who you pair him with.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think just like finalize, like at Coop, what you've always taught me is to really, eliminate and narrow down my player pool. I think I'm going to go with Clint Boyer and Ryan Newman in this range. I'm not going to play them in the same lineup at all. So in my rules, as I've said from the get-go, it's going to be, a couple of the guys that I mentioned up top, and then I'm going to have one of William Byron or Ryan Newman. Clint Boyer and Ryan Newman. And you may have just talked me into some shares of William Byron too. If I want to get a little frisky with my builds.
I mean, you don't know who's going to, like I said, it's all about, who avoids the, bumper cars and can take advantage of it. And then the other piece too is there's going to be some cautions, but you're going to see more drivers miss these chicanes and, miss the turns, and that's going to lose them track position. So that's the key there. And, one of these drivers, whether it be Bell or Newman or Reddick, Jimmy Johnson, one of them is going to take advantage of it and get up there, and track position's the king.
Well, you have to consider too that, it's pretty obvious that they're going to drive somewhat aggressive, right, Coop? Because it's a shorter race. So there could be a bunch of, like you said, bumper cars. Like, you definitely are going to have to avoid some bumper cars, because these guys are going to be pushing to get up there.
Right. And then the other piece, like you saw yesterday in the Xfinity race, where pit strategy is going to be key here. You're going to have some cars that stay out, and then some cars that only take 2 tires, and then you have the others that take 4. And there was one restart yesterday where the front 2 cars either didn't take any tires or they took 2, and they basically got ran over by the cars behind them.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. We got the next. Here we got 16th Kenseth, Keselowski 17th, Reddick 18th, Wallace 19th, and Jones 20th. All right, Coop, we're bringing it back to you here with this range. Now, all right, you got to talk to me about this range, because there's a few drivers I have a strong – I just always seem to play. Tyler Reddick is like one of those drivers who I just feel like he's so aggressive and he's good, and he's one of those guys that he can either win everything for you or he can lose it all for you. I like those type of drivers though. So talk me in or out of him if you have something on him, and then anyone else in this range you like.
All right, well, we'll start with Reddick since you brought him up. And the key for me this year so far has been playing in Reddick on the 1.5 mile plus tracks and fading him on everything else. And it's worked very well. So that's what my goal is today. But then I go back to myself and I keep telling myself in the back, you got to make lineups that you're uncomfortable with. And he would be one of the drivers that, would fit into there. So I might end up having a share or two. Probably depends upon his ownership. But, I could very well, be passing on him because, again, he was right behind Bell last year on the Xfinity races. And, I could see him getting, a 15th, 16th or holding his position. But he's not going to pay off because of his price again. Draftkings has priced these drivers up very well. And I see just as much downside as upside for him. So, I'm split on him. Not convincing play, but he's one of those plays that, I got to try to make myself play. The driver in here that's going to be very popular is Eric Jones. And, we all know Eric Jones. He is
always popular. I feel like he is just always popular.
He's boom or bust, man. And if you look at the road tracks, he's had very, very good success on these road tracks. And he has a lot of upside. So he's one of those drivers like a Boyer who is possibly going to pay off, possibly not going to pay off. So he's someone I want to be around field ownership on. So you definitely got to play him, I think, because the upside is really good. And then Keselowski, very interesting. When you look at the top tier road course drivers, he would probably be in the bottom piece of it. He's had some success, but he's also had some issues here. And his price is very, very high. Everybody's going to go to Blaney, who's only a couple $100 more and starting 7 positions farther back. So Keselowski could be a nice low-owned GPP play. Probably end up being 10, maybe 12% owned, I'm thinking, somewhere in that ballpark. But, for him to pay off, he's got to finish 4th, which is a lot. And if you look at his results on road tracks, he hasn't had a lot of top 5s. So he's one of those drivers who is in between for me because he could be a good fade and letting that 10 to 12 to 15% who chase him do well and getting that edge, or he could come back to bite you in the back because he does end up getting, 4th, 5th, or 6th and paying off. So, again, maybe field ownership or a fade. I haven't decided what I want to do. But he's up in the air.
I got something for you. So I got some ownership projections up. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is right or not, but as you're talking about it, I thought Brad Keselowski would be a nice decision point for me in tournaments today because here's what I naturally see, kind of as a NASCAR donkey that I am. We always want guys that are going to have place differential and have upside as in regards to finishing position, which that puts Brad Keselowski in play in a normal, race. But in this one where we don't have as many laps to deal with, he seems risky, but these ownership projections are showing him right around 35%. So like for me, I want to fade him because if he needs a top 4 or better, and if he's going to be higher owned, I can get massive amounts of leverage by fading him. But ownership projection could be wrong too. Like,
right.
It could be way wrong too. And he could end up being lower owned, So it's just one of those decision points that, you're going to have to think about today, at least in my opinion.
If he's 35%, I would be with you, and I would take my chances of, maybe if you want to hedge and throw him in 1 or 2 lineups or completely fading.
Oh, that's not your style, Hoop or Coop. You don't hedge here. We don't throw him in 1 or 2.
I don't either, but I'm just speaking to the people in general.
I mean, Hoop might hedge. He probably hedges, but not Coop.
Yeah, we're not hedging on this show. Come on.
Yeah, and then Bubba Wallace is in here too, and I don't know what his ownership projections are, but he's having a good year. the guy's horrible on road tracks, man. I think 24th is his best finish ever. He might overachieve that, but I'm passing on Bubba today.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with Coop in this range. I know we got baseball coming up. So for me in this range, Eric Jones, he's always jockey, but I like him. And I'm fading Keselowski, and I'll have some Tyler Reddick.
Kansas was another driver in here we didn't talk about. You know, he's pretty decent on road tracks. I think he'll get some more ownership than, you know, what a Newman would be because he's starting farther back, and he's a little bit more expensive. But I think I would go back to Newman over Kenseth.
Okay. Coop, we had a question in the chat. Someone asked, Tim asked, how do you figure out where a driver has to finish in order to pay off his price? If you just want to quickly touch on that.
You know, basically, you know, if the guy is 10K, you know, like I said, you know, times that by 5, and that gives you 50 points. And then, you know, you just look at either the chart we have, or you can go into the rules and scoring and see where he would have to finish to accumulate 50 points.
There you go. That was the simple breakdown right there. Let's move on to the next range, though. 21st, we got Buescher, Pierce, 22nd, Ty Dillon, 23rd, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., was 25th, Cole Custer, 26th. And somehow I forgot the 24th driver, which I will find in a sec. But as I find that guy, Coop. Oh, I'm sorry. That's Ryan Blaney. That's why I forgot him, because I was looking down.
not an
Ryan
important driver to miss.
Yeah, he's an important driver to miss because he's going to be pretty popular. He's starting 24th. He's way up here, Coop. You kind of touched on him a little bit because you thought that Keselowski was going to be a pivot off of him. Yeah. But now you're seeing ownership on Keselowski is going to be higher. Does that mean Blaney's ownership is going to be somehow like level with Keselowski, or is he still going to be higher than him?
If it's level with Keselowski, I would take Blaney definitely over him. The problem with Blaney, though, he's going to have to avoid a lot. He's a very good driver, has excellent chance to finish in the top 10. I think he needs a 6 to be able to pay off. And, you know, he's had a lot of incidents this year, a lot of bad luck. So, you know, he is kind of like a Eric Jones Jr., but doesn't get the notoriety for it like Jones does. But, you know, just be cautious with him. He's hard not to put into your lineup because of that upside. And, you know, Jones, people are going to play Jones. People are going to play Blaney. One of them is going to pay off. Playing both of them in the same lineup, you can have some of them, but I wouldn't put a lot of them in the same lineup. The driver that I absolutely love in here, I think is going to be lower owned, is Buescher. Starts 21st, has a good price, and, you know, hasn't had a great year. But if you look at his road course history, I think he's had 16 top 20s out of like 19 races. It's something like that, 13 out of 16. You know, so he's going to be solid. He might get you that 17th, 18th place. I think he's going to get a low owned. He needs 15th in order to pay off. But if he gets you 16th, 17th, it could do well. Doesn't have to gain a lot. But I like him. You know, Ricky Stenhouse, you mentioned him. I'll have some Ricky Stenhouse, but his best finish ever is a 15th. He doesn't do great on road courses, but, you know, he could get up there and surprise. So he's not somebody just to completely wash away. Who else? Brian Priest and Ty Dillon. There's not a lot of value to choose from this week when you go down low. And I think people are going to force these guys in there, especially Priest at 51 and Dillon at 58. And they're risky. And I want to be either fading them or very low underweight on them. I don't know. Dillon's not a great road course driver. Priest has very limited experience. And there's drivers who are starting behind him who are going to pass him. So it's going to be hard for them. But, you know, again, you never know what's going to happen. But I'm not very high on either one of them this week.
All right. So, AP, let's bring it to you. What are you thinking in this range? Blaney is someone who, you know, Coop likes, but you got to be cautious with him a little bit. But he thinks he's going to be popular. And then he loves Buescher in this range. What are you thinking?
Yeah, back to like Blaney, I was just looking it up. He's projecting to be about 45% owned, and I get it. The upside we just talked about with Keselowski. For me, from a tournament standpoint, if I go back to what I was talking about before, to where I had those rules in place where I'm playing a Chase Elliott or Martin Truex, like I can't. And then if I'm playing, also if I'm playing like an Eric Jones or someone else, I can't fit Keselowski or a Blaney into my lineups. It's not going to work. And so I'm probably going to, so like here's the thing. If he ends up getting a top 5 or wins, I am completely done today. I'm just absolutely just closed down the app. I have no chance. I understand that. But at the same time, I'm going to be completely different, and I'm going to, leapfrog over people if this guy just doesn't get, at least inside the top 10, so if he can finish outside of the top 10, I'm going to have massive leverage, unless my guys that I go all in on like Rec or something like that. So like it's not going to be optimal in cash games, but in tournaments, your deep field tournaments, that's the route I'm going. If these ownership projections are true on Keselowski and Blaney, I'm probably going to fade them. And I'm not like playing 150 or anything like that today. I'll probably have like, 15 to 20. And so in my 15 to 20, for me, I really got to plant some flags. And so if I want to exposure and if I want to get overweight to Chase Elliott and some of these other guys up top, I have to fade these chalkier guys down here.
I think
that makes sense.
What a key is, like, say you're doing 20 lineups, take 10 of them and make them with the chalkier drivers. Jones, Blaney, we haven't got to Bowman yet. He's going to be popular, and we haven't gotten to Gone yet. He's going to be popular. But those are the 4 who had the most high upside. Take 10 lineups, and put 1, 2, or 3 of them in those 10, and then take the other 10 lineups and only put 1 of them or none of them in it.
Coop, are you saying would I be just absolutely insane if I full faded Blaney? Like, should I not be doing that?
I wouldn't say you're crazy. But, I think field ownership is obviously the safe and cheap way, the hoop way out, so to say. But, I don't feel comfortable fading Blaney.
I love where we're just taking digs at our coworker Hoop here, just solid like little jabs at Hoop, on the NASCAR show. Guy's still sleeping. He'll
come
right
with
now.
the haymaker screenshot though. Mine are little jabs, little eye pokes, and then he'll come with the haymaker screenshot to put me in my place.
He's not going to see this video anyway, so we don't have to.
I guess from what I understand is, we should be taking those jabs at Titletown because he's taking.
Here we go. The real chalk master is Titletown. I'll tell you that.
No, Titletown's the GOAT. He's the GOAT.
He's great, but he is definitely the chalkiest guy I think I've met. But let's move on, guys, because we got the MLB show coming up soon. The next range we got, I mentioned him, Cole Custer, 26, Alex Bowman, 27, John Nemechek, 28th, Corey LaJoy, 29th, and Mike McDowell, 30th. Coop, let's start with you. You said Bowman's going to be chalky.
Yeah, real quick, not playing any Corey LaJoy. He has not been very good on road tracks whatsoever. I don't care, what his price is or what his starting position is. It's kind of like Bubba Wallace. They're just not good, and you want to have road track drivers that are good. Bowman, he's one of the few drivers who are mispriced on this slate. He's probably going to be just as chalky as, Elliott. I mean, not Elliott, but Keselowski and Blaney. Perhaps even more because of his price. He needs a 15th to play off. You got to play him in there because he's solid on these road courses, has a lot of upside. Going back to what AP was saying, maybe if you fade Blaney and you fade Kez, you go all in on Bowman, and get your edge there. But, when you look at these guys, one of them is going to pay off, maybe 2 of them, but not all 3 or 4 of them. Cole Custer, I'll have a little bit, but not a lot. Of the 3 rookies, he was the worst on road tracks last year. He has a great starting position, which provides upside. So I think he'll be fairly popular from that perspective. Michael McDowell, another, driver they priced up. He's got to get 19th. He's a very good road track driver back here. Between, these guys, I would put Bowman as the best driver from a road track perspective, and then I would put McDowell right behind him. Very good. And then we're missing, who else did I miss back here? Nemechek on paper looks like a very good play. But again, less experience. If you want to, I'm not looking at it like this. Like the pivot off of Nemechek would be Ty Dillon or Ryan Preece. But I don't like any three of those drivers.
Okay, so in this range, you pretty much said you like Alex Bowman, even though he's going to be chalky. You think he's a pretty solid play.
Yep.
Cole Custer, you said you might have a little of, but you're not too high on him today.
Yep. And then McDowell.
And Michael
Definitely
McDowell.
McDowell.
All right, so AP, anything else on this range that Coop didn't talk about? Anything you're going overweight on in tournaments or anything like that?
Yeah, just final one note in this range. I mean, with NASCAR, you got to eat some chalk. Like you can't just like fade all these chalky guys. They're chalky for a reason. Now, I want to go in on Alex Bowman and pair him with those other less chalkier guys. I think that will get me leverage over any Alex Bowman, Ryan Blaney type of builds out there. So that's going to be my strategy today.
All right. Let's finish out these bottom drivers. I mean, we got Suarez 31st, Yealy 32nd, Poole 33rd, Barrett 34th, Huff 35th, Smithley 36th. I mean, anyone else I didn't bring up, Timmy Hills 37th, Davidson 38th, and how'd you pronounce the name? Gong or whatever?
Yeah, Brennan Gong. Yeah,
Gong.
he
said he's going to be popular. Why don't you start with him and then anyone else in this range?
Well, he's a Daytona track donkey. He is great on these super speedways. Unfortunately for him, it's not really going to have a lot of speed, but he has the optimal starting position of 39th, where he can only go up. He does have road track experience in general, and he does have experience on this track, which will help. They did a good job of pricing him up. He's not a play where in a couple weeks or when we have, Daytona and Talladega where, he's going to start 39th and you play 80% of them. But I will have quite a bit of burn and gone. He has, like I said, nowhere to go but up. 25th is what he needs to pay off. And I'm hoping that, people kind of stay off of him. And he stays maybe around 30%. And I get some. He is risky. But the thing is, too, he's got a RCR car. He has a much better car than all these drivers who are starting back there. So he's going to get past them fairly quickly. And his car should hold up. It's just a matter of he can stay on track and avoid, the others' accidents. Suarez is the other driver in here that I have some interest in. He's a good road track driver. And, he's better in my mind than a Preece, a Dillon, a Nemechek when it comes to road course experience. And I would rather put my money with him. They did a good job of pricing him up. And then a super sleeper that I have in here would be Davison. Starts 38th. He's in bad equipment. So you've got to hope that the equipment holds up. But he does have road course experience. And if you see what happened yesterday, where we have some attrition, he could pay off and get a 28th, 26th, 25th, 29th position finish. And if you play him, you can pretty much play anybody else you want. The thing is, if you go in on him, you got to commit to him. Because if you want to play one lineup with him, you're just playing Russian roulette and hoping that you get the other ones with them. But, if you're making 20 lineups, I think, you got to play him at least 5 or 6 times and give yourself an ample opportunity to get the right mix with him. He's very, very risky because, like I said, lap 2, he could be done because of his car. But the upside to him is he's going to stay far enough back to where he should avoid all these. And if he can just drive straight and keep his car on track and let the attrition happen, he should be able to accumulate some positive point differential for you.
All right. So AP, real quick on this bottom, tier here from 31st all the way down. Gong's going to be somewhat popular, Coop thinks, but hopefully not as popular as like, a Ryan Blaney. What are you thinking with him and anyone else in this range?
Yeah, I'm showing 20 to 22% projection. I like the Gone call. That's what I'm rolling with. I'll keep it nice and simple. I might give Davison a shot too. I like those comments. Coop.
Yeah, and one thing, Coop, if you had to rank the guys you said up here, what was it? Gong, Suarez, Davidson, pretty much. How would you rank them in terms of like your exposure to them?
If Gong is going to be 22%, I want to have 40 to 50%. Because his upsides, immensely.
So
there.
you would have the most interest in him at that ownership.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But I mean, like I said,
and Davis.
Right. Like at a Daytona, I would probably want like 80% of them, because the thing is here, you got to play it similar to that, but in a mix kind of, because these drivers who are starting up front aren't going to get the negative points that they would get like they would at a Daytona if they crash out. I want to have a lot of Gong, but I don't want to be like a Daytona type Gong. Suarez, I would feel most comfortable with next. But then again, Davison, if he can just keep his car on track and let the attrition happen, he can get up there for you.
All right. So let's finish the show out because we got to get out of here because we got the MLB show at 11 with the winner. Who we think's going to win? AP, let's start with you. Give us the guy you think is gonna win the race.
I'm gonna say Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch, I like that call. Coop, what about you?
I'm going with Kyle Busch also.
Oh man, I stole his pick. I love it.
All right, well, we're not gonna have the same thoughts. So I'm gonna go with Martin Truex Jr. To win the race. But guys, that's gonna do it for us. Make sure you stay tuned. We're going to be back live in about 7 minutes with me, Holden, and Big T breaking down this MLB slate that we got going on today. So stay tuned for that. But again, for me, JSU, AP, Coop,